Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, racing fans, wherever you are. It is a beautiful day here at Fuji International Speedway. As our first qualifying session of the day is starting, drivers have 6 minutes to put in their laps, and then we have a race after that, which will be a 20-minute race followed by a 20-minute reverse grid race. We have no drivers out on the track so far. Everyone's still loading in. And I believe 1 minute until qualifying starts. Like I said, we are racing today at Fuji Speedway, located in Japan, I believe. Length of 4.5 kilometers. An elevation change of 36 meters. And 20 seconds before we get underway in qualifying. We have our first cars making their way out onto the track. Got Just By Ghost, followed by Choppers Bro and MOHD. I've just been told that the sessions have changed up a bit. We have a 12-minute qualifying, followed by a 30-minute race and a 30-minute reverse grid. So our practice session goes into overtime now. Qualifying will start in just a few moments. Here we are, we've got a countdown timer, 1 minute 20 seconds to qualifying. Which, as I said, will be 12 minutes. Looks like we have 7 drivers competing as of now. We may get more joining in a few moments. Alright, as we start our qualifying session here, we have the first cars coming out onto the track. Looks like Horlov is going to be the first one. Who is this? Letting Just Bygos pass as Horlov parks at the end of the pit lane. Just Bygos parks outside of the pit lane. Looks like we've got our cars lining up, preparing for qualifying. Let's follow our lead car here, Horlov. Our qualifying session should be underway. Any moment now. Seems to be some sort of technical difficulty. The lights are not going green for us to start qualifying here. Please stand by, folks. I'm not sure what's going on here, but we'll get it figured out. While we wait, why don't we have a tour of our track here? So, as you come down the start-finish straight, got the start line here. Grid boxes, of course, lined up behind that. Oh, as our light goes green and the cars get out on the track for qualifying. All right. Let's jump on board with the car ahead. That's Just Bygos here, and we'll do a tour of a track as we go through our outlaps. So, at our first corner, sharp right-hander. Through this uphill braking zone into easy left here. As you can see, it is raining a bit. See some light rain on the track. Drivers are out on wet tires, but the grip will be diminished due to that, so you may see some cars sliding around, struggling to keep themselves on track throughout their laps. As we do right here, is Just Bygos hits the throttle a little bit too hard, loses the rear, manages to keep it on the track. Anyway, we have very slow left-hander here into, I believe, a double flat right. One right-hander here, immediately followed by another right-hander here, and then a very hard downhill braking zone into a sharp right-hander. Just Bygos struggling a bit with the rears on the entry into this sort of slalom uphill. Oh! Just Bygos spins around, gets crashed into by another car. I'm not sure who that was. It's all okay. I don't see any damage, and these aren't timed laps yet, but this could be something we see more of as we get on with our qualifying session. We have this long uphill left-hander into a slower left-hander, and then through the final corner here, which is this tightening right-hander that brings us back to the start-finish straight. Just Bygos will now be starting one of their timed laps for qualifying, as we have 8 more minutes for our drivers to put their times in. You can see everyone out on the track on the wet tires. The slicks would just not have the grip in this rain, and would not be the right choice for qualifying. As we see Just Bygos here coming down towards turn 1. We see some traffic ahead. Time will tell if that's going to be an issue. Looks like no, they moved out of the way. And we now have 1, 2 cars on their timed laps ready to put in an attempt at qualifying. As Just Bygos again struggling with the rears through the entries of these corners. You can tell how much they are struggling for grip out here. But Just Bygos putting in, of course, the fastest Sector 1 we've seen, although it is immediately beaten by Philip Fitness, who goes just a little bit quicker. As you can see, Philip Fitness a little bit behind, Just Bygos a little bit ahead. As we get towards the end of Sector 2 here, we see David Vintilescu starting a hot lap, Horlov starting a hot lap, and car number 3, that's MOHD, now exiting the pit lane and will be starting a hot lap shortly. Right. Just Bygos still struggling for grip through these corners, spinning out again, catching the curb. But they will be the first to cross the line, so for a moment they will be our first place car in qualifying. Just Bygos now coming back onto the start-finish straight. David Vintilescu shortly following behind. And LB906, who has not started a hot lap yet, will be shortly behind them. You can see the spray of the car in front here, all of the water being pushed up off the road. This is what these drivers will have to deal with during the race, as Just Bygos puts in a lap, seemingly is invalidated by one of their off-track incidents, but David Vintilescu puts in our first time lap of the day with a 1:53.275. LB906 now starting a timed lap as well. We've got Philip Fitness coming around the final corner, losing the rears but keeping it facing forwards. And I believe this should be first timed lap for Philip Fitness. Followed shortly by Horlov, who is also now coming around the final corner with 2 purple sectors, so this should be a lap to remember here. Horlov keeping it steady down the start-finish straight, making their way towards the line. What's it going to be? We will find out shortly, and it is a 1:49.298. That is 4 seconds ahead of second place currently. We see MOHD coming around the final corner. I'm not sure if they are on a timed lap currently. If not, they will be shortly. As David Vintilescu puts in a personal best in the second sector. But again, catching these curbs on the exits of these corners, it is a dangerous track out here today. So it's looking like David Vintilescu is not going to be able to improve this time around. Just Bygos struggling in the same spot we just saw David with. And LB906 now coming through the same corner. Seems to be able to keep it together a little bit better. And they have 2 green sectors, so we'll see where they end up on the leaderboard. Coming now through the final corner. Getting a decent exit onto the start-finish straight. Making our way down towards the starting line. And for LB906, it is a 2:04.151, but it is not tracked, so I believe they went off of the circuit at some point and invalidated their lap time. As they now crash into the wall, actually, probably will be making their way back to the pits at some point. We see our number 1 car, Horlov, with a purple sector 1, a yellow sector 2. It could go any way here. Is it going to be a personal best lap time? We will see. We also see Choppers Bro, I believe, preparing to start a timed lap, as Philip Fitness puts in a 1:55.387, leaving them in 3rd place. Horlov 7 seconds off the pace. Certainly there was some kind of incident there for them. As Choppers Bro now starts a timed lap, hoping to put themselves somewhere in the running, although braking late, locking up the fronts, and running wide in the first corner. It is going to be tough to come back from that in this lap. We have just 2.5 minutes left of qualifying, which means if these drivers want to start another lap, they have to do it now, pretty much. MOHD looking like they will have time to get one more lap in. Anyone else who has not started a lap, it is going to be very tight. Time will tell if they can make it to the line before qualifying closes. So we see LB906 now coming through the final corner. This lap is not the lap that they need. This lap is going to put them 4th currently, as they struggle again with the rears through the final corner. Get back going on the track, and it's looking like they will have time to start another lap, as will everyone else. So we have LB906, David Vintilescu, Orlov, Philip Fitness, Just Bygos, and Choppers Bro will all have an opportunity to put a lap time in here. So let's see what they are going to be able to do. We see LB906 struggling again in the first corner, but making it through. David Vintilescu just behind, seems to have run wide off the track, so this lap is not going to be the lap for David Vintilescu, and he is going to be stuck with a 1:52.087. As we see Horlov coming through the first corner, as we see Philip coming through the first corner, as we see Just Bygos coming through the first corner, and hoping to start a lap. It looks like Philip has spun, so he will not be able to improve his lap time. Choppers Bro comes across the line. It's a 2:10.715, and they will have time to start one more lap, as Horlov matches their pace in the first sector. This could be an improvement for them. We see MOHD seemingly having some trouble again keeping it on the track. It is so difficult out here to keep your car between the white lines for a whole lap, and that is what these drivers will have to do if they want to improve their lap times. I don't think we're going to see anyone else putting in a competitive lap here. MOHD already too far off the pace. LB906 potentially could have a chance at improving here. We'll have to stay on board with them and see. Orlov puts in the fastest Sector 2 we've seen yet. They're already in first, but they are looking to draw out that margin even more as LB906 comes through the last corner. Potentially this could put them as far up as 4th place. I don't see them getting 3rd place here. Just Bygos is off of their pace, it seems, so LB906 is going to be the only one with a chance to improve as they come down to the line. And it is position 4 for LB906 in the last possible moment. Orlov coming through with 2 purple sectors, making their way to the start-finish line. And losing some pace in that final sector, they are unable to improve, although 1st place hopefully will be enough for them. And that is not qualifying done, as Just Bygos finds some pace out of absolutely nowhere, pushes LB906 back, and takes 4th position. I don't think anyone was expecting that. Choppers Bro coming through the final corner. I don't think with the pace to improve at all, but I have been surprised, so time will tell. See if MOHD is also able to do anything here. I am not sure. Choppers Bro is coming to the line and is unable to improve. So I don't believe MOHD will make it to the line before the timing closes, as they spin out coming through the last set of corners. So that is our qualifying order. It is Orlov P1, David Vintilescu P2, Philip Fitness P3, Just Bygos P4, LB906 P5, Choppers Bro P6, MOHD P7, and Azukar FB P8. That will be our starting order for our first race here, which will be 30 minutes, and it will be our reverse starting order for our second race. Alright, qualifying now is over. Our first race, 30 minutes with this starting order, should be starting shortly. We see Philip actually in the broadcast chat. As a driver, it is so hard to drive. We can tell. You can see everybody out here just struggling for grip. The track is wet, and these cars are not easy to drive in the best of conditions. So definitely you guys are going to be having quite the time in this run down into turn 1 here as the race starts. And it's lights out and away we go. As our drivers start to get out towards turn 1, we see Azukar FV making up a position on MOHD, making up a position on Choppers, looking to make up a position on Bygos, and they do down the inside into turn 1, but they lock up, they run wide. We see multiple cars going off the track. Everyone is struggling for grip, including Azukar as they spin into the wall. That is not what they will be looking for here. David Vintilescu managing to get up into first as Horlov drops from P1 to P5. That is a devastating first corner for them, as we see Philip now 9/10 behind. We see cars spinning out left and right. Horlov looking to make up some positions here, already back up to third place as LB906 is also catching to Bygos, and Choppers catching to LB here. We're going to keep an eye on the lead. It looks like it looks like Horlov has just gotten past Philip. We're going to keep an eye on that gap, and we are going to keep an eye. There we go. Maybe. We're going to keep an eye on that gap, and we are going to keep an eye on P6 down here, who is following closely LB906 behind Just Bygos, looking to make up a position. Will they have the pace to do it? I don't know. But they are sticking with him, keeping that gap under a second, 7/10 right now. As Bygos also looking to make up a position on Choppers here. 3/10, 4/10 of a second is the gap. Bygos down towards the inside, runs a little bit wide on the exit. Will they be able to get on the power fast enough? I am not sure. LB906 looking to make the position back in the final corner on our racetrack. And they do, as Bygos runs a little bit wide. Cuts across the back of LB, makes contact, nearly loses the car, but no crashes there. As we see Bygos now losing that position to Choppers after that incident. Horlov now making a move down the inside of David, losing the rears, having to correct, running wide. David is going to keep it in front of Horlov here as we start our second lap of the race. We're going to keep that gap on the screen, and we're going to keep our eyes on Just Bygos, who is trying to get down the inside of Choppersboro coming out of turn 1. Keep an eye on the onboard here on your left. That's Horlov on David, we see. Horlov looking to make a move around the outside. Just Bygos making that move on Choppers, and Horlov now taking the lead of the race. as we are about halfway through our second lap. It did not take long at all for Horlov to make up the lost positions. As Just Bygos spins, sends it into the wall. That is not going to be a happy day for him. Chopper is now just a second behind LB906, 7/10 of a second. Everyone is just all over the track. It has got to be so hard to overtake for these drivers. But we will see as we see. Who is that? Philip, I believe, has just spun. He's lost one position. Will he lose another? I don't know. Looks like the gap there. Yes, he will. Philip now 0.2 seconds behind Just Bygos in P5. Horlov has already pulled the gap out to 10 seconds in the course of less than half a lap. Huge congrats to them. As Philip now looking to make a move around Just Bygos. It looks like Choppers has spun and has lost some positions. We're going to keep this gap up on the screen, and we're going to have a look at David Vintilescu, who has just gotten past LB906. LB906 looking to make that position back, hits the back of David as they both make it through the final corner. Speed looks to be very equal, but LB906 with a slightly better exit as David runs wide, and David is going to lose that position. But he may have an opportunity to do something about it down into turn 1. We're going to keep an eye on Just Bygos looking to make a move on Philip for P4 on your left here. We're going to keep our eyes on David Vintilescu, who has caught the slipstream. He's pulled alongside, he's down the inside, and he gets back ahead of LB906 for second position in this race. And there's contact. That is a huge crash. David Vintilescu managing to keep it on the track after just slamming the side of LB906. That is not what you expect to see in a race like this. As they both manage to keep it close, it is 0.3 of a second between them. Philip is making up these positions too. He's not too far behind. We see these two in front. That's David, that's LB, and Philip is only 0.3 of a second behind them, struggling as always with the rears. But we don't see... Oh! David trying to get a move done, not able to put the throttle down hard enough around the outside. As we see Philip running a little bit wide, probably trying to avoid David on the edge of the track there. David with a little bit later braking, able to stay ahead of Philip. And LB906 staying in the front of all three of them. This is an incredible three-way battle here. As we see David still trying to get it done on LB. Philip still trying to get it done on David. Philip goes for the switchback. He's able to get a bit of a better exit. LB loses the rears, barely manages to keep it out of a spin and loses 2 positions, dropping back to 4th. David up to 2nd, Philip up to 3rd. Philip is not done yet. He is going to try and get down inside of Philip down into turn 1 here if he can hold the rears together for an exit. As David spins out, loses 1 position, potentially loses another position to LB, and Philip Fitness takes the 2nd position of the race. LB906 P3, David P4. Choppersbro here looking to get a move on Just Bygos, able to keep that gap down to about half a second. As we come, I believe, into the start-finish straight here. Yes, it is. Choppers potentially with a bit of a better exit, gaining a little bit of time on Just Bygos, but you can see it is brutal to drive. This spray is absolutely just terrible for these drivers. The visibility is not good. But Choppers is able to get it down the inside. Is he going to be able to be late on the brakes? No, he is not. Just Bygos keeps it ahead, but Choppers is coming back. He runs a little bit wide on the exit of turn 1 here. Will Bygos get back down the inside? Yes, he will, with a much better exit. Choppers staying P6 for now, but I suspect we will see this move again in the coming laps. We see our fastest lap of the race set by Horlov as a 1:54.0. As Choppers struggles with the rears, Bygos struggles with the rears even more, spins out and goes off the track, so Choppers takes P5 from him. And that is an overtake that Choppers is glad he will not have had to do, because it is absolutely brutal to get a move done on anyone around this track in these conditions. We see David Vintilescu catching up rapidly to LB906, now down to about half a second gap between them. David following him through, not looking to make a move yet, but maybe down the inside keeping it safe for now, looking for the better exit, and he does get the better exit as we see Philip spinning around, running off the track. Nearly was a collision there. LB906 up to second. David looking to take that from him as they move towards the final corner. David with a little bit better exit speed. Orlov sets the fastest lap of the race as a 152.6, but David goes around the outside, manages to get it done on Philip as Philip follows him through. Now about a second and a half is the gap between them. So Philip will be unable to get back on David down into turn 1 here. But potentially sometime through the coming laps, we will see this battle continue. Orlov has pulled out an amazing 20-second gap to second position as our cars come across the line for, I don't know what lap that was. For our 4th lap of the race here, it seems. Philip Fitness looking to close up this gap. It's about a second and a half right now, but it is closing rapidly down to 1.3 as we come through the first few corners here on the track. Which car was that going very slowly? I don't know. It appears to be... Who was that? Azukar FV potentially is lapped traffic here, moving very slowly on the side of the track. Luckily, no incidents there as Philip is now within 0.4 of a second of David Vintilescu with the better exit, but struggling again with the rears, unable to put the power down, and losing about a tenth to David over the course of this straight here. We can see in the last lap, David made up just so much time. Philip must have had an incident as Philip spins once again. He is fast, but he is unable to keep his car on the track, unfortunately. And that may be the thing that costs him second position today, as he drops down now 7 seconds behind David Vintilescu in second place. See Just Bygos looking to make a move up the inside of Chopper's Bro. Is he going to get it done? No, he is not. He does not want to run wide, as it seems LB906 has just done. That may cost him 2 positions, as Just Bygos hits the back of Chopper's Bro. Chopper spins off the track. Just Bygos waits, gives the position back, as he should. And Chopper stays ahead. LB has also stayed ahead of the both of them, despite running extremely wide into that sharp right-hand corner. Just Bygos closing this gap down to less than 6/10 of a second. Coming towards the final corner, Bygos runs a little bit wide. He's not going to have the exit speed that he needs to get a move done into the last corner here. But potentially, if he gets a good exit here, he will have the gap to be able to get something done down into turn 1. We see some lapped traffic. Looks like Azukar FV again on the right side of your screen here. He should stay out of the way. He should not pose a problem for any of our racers, as it seems he is doing. Just Bygos, about 9/10 of a second back. Most likely going to be too far for him to get a move done into turn 1 here. But he will be looking to get ahead of Chopper's Bro and take P5 sometime in probably the next lap. Oh, as Just Bygos gets hit in the rear by someone. Who was that? I don't know. Potentially was Azukar FB. Our lapped traffic may have missed their braking point. But it doesn't seem to have been too detrimental, as Just Bygos is managing to close that gap back to Chopper's Bro. He lost about 2.5 seconds from that incident, but it is down. Gap is down to around 2 seconds now, so he has the pace here to get past Chopper's Bro. It's just whether or not... Oh! As Chopper's Bro hits more lapped traffic and spins, Just Bygos takes 5th position. Chopper's Bro struggling to get it back onto the track. I'm not sure who it was that he hit, but that has cost him a position in this race. We are nearing the halfway point here. All of our cars are pretty spaced out. You can see about a 20-second gap between most of them. Nearly 50 seconds between first and second position. Although that is closing. Has something happened to Horlev here? Yes, it has. They are extremely wide. I am not sure what's happened there. Luckily for them, they do have the margin. They go from about a 45-second margin to about a 30-second margin, which is not what they're looking for, but it's not going to cost them a position. Chopper's Bro getting the gap to Bygos down to about 4 seconds. We can see Bygos coming up towards the final corner here as Choppersboro is still about 4 seconds back, so hopefully Choppersboro will have the pace to close that up and to get a move done at some point in the coming laps. We will see. Choppersboro not putting the power down on exit. As you can expect, very scared of losing the rears, but still getting the exit that he needs. Just Bygos not with the speed that he needs on this straight as Choppersboro closes that gap down to about 3.4 seconds. Philip Fitness is now about 4 seconds behind David Ventilescu. He will be looking to get a move done there. And we will put his onboard on the left-hand side of the screen. Choppersboro still keeping this gap around 3.5, down to about 2.5 now. Just Bygos not getting the speed that he needs out of turn 1. As Choppers is closing the gap, but not as quickly as we saw for a moment there. So potentially Bygos has found some more pace in that car. David Ventilescu now down to about 1.5 seconds. Looks like Just Bygos has spun, has lost P5. Choppersboro moves back up to P5. We're going to keep our eye on David Ventilescu now. Gap down to about 1.3 to Philip ahead. Philip spins, goes off the track, and David takes position 2. Looks like Just Bygos has received a 5-second time penalty for cutting the track. Currently, it is a 95-second gap behind, so I don't suspect he'll be too worried about that unless he does get a move done on Choppers, as he will be wanting to, as the gap has closed down to about 0.9 of a second. Just Bygos missing the apex a little bit, struggling to put the power down, but still, and he spins out, and he is losing that gap that he has built up. But as we can see, he does have the pace to catch Choppers here if he can keep it clean, as it looks like someone has spun. It wasn't Choppers there. Philip now about 3 seconds behind David Ventilescu, looking to close up that gap, as both of them, Philip and David, have both spun, exiting the final corner. Much less grip than they expected there, but it looks like David Ventilescu is going to get away much faster and is going to open that gap to Philip up to about 7 seconds now. Philip does have the pace to catch him. David does have the consistency to hopefully hold that position, so we will see how this plays out. We are past the halfway point, 14 minutes and 30 seconds left in our race here, and it has been absolute carnage so far. Orlov is lapping consistently. They put in a 1:57 on their last lap. We're going to ride on board for a lap here with them while there's not too much other action. Orlov puts in the fastest lap of the race, a 1:52.398. Incredible stuff here in the wet conditions today. You'll love to see it. We're going to keep our eye on Philip Fitness over on the left-hand side, who is closing that gap up. But we are going to stay on board with Orlov for a moment here. And it is just a beautiful sight to see. Horolov, clearly an expert with this car, an expert in these wet conditions, keeping the car exactly where he wants it, putting as much power down as he possibly can. Struggling a little bit with the rears, but managing to hold it, managing to stay off the power until he can afford to put it back, and holding the car steady on the track as he comes around the final few corners here and back to the start-finish straight. Philip Fitness seems to have lost a bit of pace on David Ventilescu. Gap is down to about 2.7 now. As Horolov now enters the start-finish straight, we do see some lap traffic getting away to the side of the track. Who was that? I'm not sure. Seems to be Just Bygos. Philip seems to have had an incident and spun, lost about 6 seconds there. But Horolov now coming down past the start-finish straight, puts in another fastest lap of the race in a 1:51.6. This is incredible stuff from Horolov here. He's pulled the gap to second position. Well, it's not going to be accurate because it's across the line, so I will let you know in about 30 seconds where that's sitting. As we see, Philip has dropped down to about 9 seconds behind David. Is he going to have the pace to catch him in the next 12 minutes of our race here? We will see. Currently, he does not appear to be gaining. It looks like David may have the pace advantage here. It may come down to who is going to be able to keep it on the track more, and so far from what we've seen today, David is going to hold that position. So only time will tell. As David Vintilescu now making his way down towards the starting line, this will tell us what the gap truly is between Horolov and between David Vintilescu. He crosses the line and he is 70 seconds behind first position, so huge props to Horolov for just being consistent and being fast and pulling out this gap through the course of the race. Incredible stuff. Philip's still unable to find any pace on David here. Potentially this could come down to pit strategy as well if these drivers do make a stop. I don't know. The gap now out to about 11.2 seconds. Philip is gaining, but he is not gaining quickly, and he is not gaining consistently. So we'll see if he's able to get this gap closed up. Only about 10 minutes left in our race here. So if Philip is going to find some pace, he needs to find it now. Currently, it does not look like he will. Gap is down to 12 seconds now. Philip, struggling just to keep the car on the racing line and losing loads of time as a result. We can see that the top three are the only ones on our lead lap here. Azukar FV, our driver, currently in 8th position, is 3 laps behind the lead. Which doesn't mean too much. We can also see that MOHD is over a full lap behind the car right in front of him. As Philip spins out here, that may put a pin in his ability to catch David, as the gap now comes out to nearly 20 seconds, 19.5. So Philip, if he's going to catch David, he is going to have to put on the gas right now. But it's not looking too likely at the moment. We got now under 10 minutes left in our race here. That is going to come out to probably 6 more laps, which is not going to give Philip much time to get anything done, as he is currently lapping slower than David Vintilescu. As we see the sector view here, David Vintilescu about 2/10 quicker in the first sector. I suspect that's off pure pace. And then 2 seconds and almost 7 seconds in the last 2 sectors, which are probably just consistency issues from Philip's part. Unable to keep the car facing forwards and unable to keep the car moving forwards. But we will see if Philip is able to find some more pace in this car. Currently the gap is still falling. It is... Oh, has something happened to David? The gap's just dropped down to 13 seconds. I'm not sure what's happened there. But this may give Philip a chance. He'd have to be about 2 seconds quicker a lap, which is very difficult, but here not impossible. As we see, Horolov is about 2 seconds, well, about 1.5 seconds quicker than David Vintilescu over the course of a lap. So Philip will have to find incredible pace if he wants a chance at catching David, assuming that David does not make a detrimental mistake, of course. Gap still sitting a little under 13 seconds here. Philip, I think, just taking it easy, trying to keep the car on track, not pushing too hard in these wet conditions, as the gap is still falling down to about 13.1 seconds now. 12.9. but it is certainly not closing fast enough for Philip to get a move done on David. Orlov again puts in the fastest lap of the race, a 150.357. Incredible stuff from him. Just amazing pace out of this car. Something that none of our other racers here today are able to match. Philip will be hoping that he can put in some laps like that, though, if he's going to catch David before the end of this race. Currently, he's P3. He would like to be P2. The gap is about 12 seconds currently. David Vintilescu seems to have had an incident. The gap is fallen down to 11 seconds. It was down to 10 for a moment, but that still is not going to be enough for Philip to get a move done before the end of this race. You see nobody else really in the range to overtake anyone, so we'll keep an eye on Philip on the left-hand side, and we will watch Horolov for the last few minutes of this race, as he is still putting in consistent laps, managing to keep the car together even when the grip is not there, and he's the fastest man here by a huge margin. So Horolov, actually, before the end of this race, Horolov may actually lap Philip. I don't think he'll lap David, but Philip is quite close, so that is something we may see before the end of the race as well. We're going to open our action camera here. Get some screenshots. Orlov now getting another lap done. We are going to continue to watch him as I find my camera view that I want here. There it is. Philip has fallen back again. He is now 15, almost 16 seconds behind David, so I really do not think we're going to see anything there unless David has a massive spin and gets stuck in the gravel. As we see Horolov now coming up to the back of Philip, a lap ahead. Hopefully this is able to stay clean. Hopefully Philip will move out of the way. Anything can happen in these races, as we have seen today. But Philip does seem to play nice. He lets Horolov by, and Horolov continues on with his lap like nothing ever happened. So Philip now fallen down to 18.5 seconds. I don't think there's any chance for Philip to get anything done on David here. And I'd say it's pretty likely that our current order will be our finishing order for the end of the race. Again, anything can happen though, so only time will tell. Have about 3.5 minutes left. That's going to be 2 or 3 more laps, I suspect. We will see once we get to the final lap when this race will end. Hopefully all of the drivers have packed enough fuel. That would be unfortunate for someone to run out on the final lap. We see Philip actually making up some margin here. I wonder if David has had a spin or some kind of incident, as Philip is back up to about 11 seconds behind now. Still, it is going to be a huge job if Philip wants to catch up before the end of this race. 10.5 seconds, and Philip, he is not gaining nearly as much as he needs to be if he's going to catch. But potentially we could see something happen before the end here. If David spins, if David gets stuck in the gravel, something like that. See, LB906, 5-second penalty for cutting the track. Currently 45-second gap behind, so I don't think he's going to be too worried about that. But it is unfortunate for him. As we pass... Who is this? Whoa! MOHD, it appears, giving Horolov a little bit of trouble, as I think 2 laps behind now MOHD is, but nearly pushing Horolov off the track. He is going to be happy that nothing worse came out of that. That could have been a big incident. Whoa, Horolov struggling with the rears, running a little bit wide, but keeping it out of the barriers and getting back onto the track as quickly as possible. Horolov may actually lap David Vintilescu here. The gap between them is getting very close. David will be a lap behind, and Horolov is much quicker, as you can see, a 152 versus a 203 consistently in terms of lap times. So Horolov may be the only car that finishes this race on the lead lap. In fact, I'd say it's likely that he will be. We see Philip passing some lapped traffic here on the main straight. Hopefully no issues with that. It does appear to be MOHD, who did give Horolov some traffic, or some trouble, passing on the last lap. Hopefully he lets him by. Philip not looking too eager to get next to him, as Philip spins out, loses the rears, keeps it out of the wall, but that is... yeah, I don't think there's anything Philip can do. We're going to have... this is going to be the last lap, I believe, as Horolov actually gets by David here. Horolov, now the only car on the lead lap, has pulled out an entire lap of margin ahead of second place. So fantastic job from him. As he makes his way back towards the starting line, back towards the final sector here. This will be the last lap of the race, as our time runs out. Horolov just struggling for grip, as all of these drivers are, but keeping it on the track. Oh, barely keeping it on the track. Horolov nearly running wide, potentially nearly sending it into the barriers, but no major issues from him as he comes up towards the final corner now, making it onto the final straight. Struggling for grip. Tire deg may be an issue for him here. Weaving down the final straight to celebrate as he makes his way towards the finish line. This has been an amazing race for him. It has been clean and it has been consistent as he passes our grid boxes now. And as he crosses the line, it is first position for Horolov, second position David Vintilescu, and Philip Fitness now is 55 seconds behind, so it will be a moment before he's able to get to the line, but he is making his way here, as we see in our onboard, coming down the final straight. This is Bygos is third. I believe that's just an issue with the leaderboard. I'm not sure what's up with that. Yes, here we go. Philip Fitness takes third position. Just Bygos has made it to the pit lane, potentially because he was a lap behind. LB906 still making it to the line. And who's this? MO. Looks like Chopper's 2 laps behind, right behind him. They will finish next to each other, but they are a full 2 laps apart, so no potential for an overtake here, even if one could have happened. As we see LB906 coming towards the line for 5th position, Choppersboro coming towards the line for 6th position, Azukar having already taken the line for 7th position, as they are side by side crossing the line. So our final finishing order is 1st position Horolov, 2nd position David Vintilescu, 3rd position LB906, 4th position Just Bygos, 5th position MOHD, 6th position Choppersboro, and 7th position Azukar FB. Congratulations to all of our racers here. Congratulations to our podium finishers. And don't leave yet, because we have our reverse grid race. So our starting order from this race is taken, and it is flipped back to front. We will have our fastest drivers starting in the back, our slowest drivers starting in the front, and it will be absolute carnage through the first corners here. So stick around. We see some more drivers. Philip telling us the tire degradation was very bad. Last 15 minutes were terrible. Azukar saying the rears lock so easily. And that is the first race of the day, folks. So again, congratulations to everyone there. And there is a lot more action to come. Just 20 seconds now, we are getting thrown right back in for our second race of the day. That is the reverse grid race. And we are, I believe we're going to follow Horlov here through for turn 1 because it is going to be a sight to see. As we see our lights come on, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 lights. We see a false start, but it's lights out. And away we go for our second race of the day. Oh, absolute carnage. I am not sure what's happened there. Choppers Bro getting a drive-through penalty for a jump start. Horlev stopping on the track. And it looks like we're going to be restarting our session here. Alright, second attempt at our race start. Looks like the rain has gone away. It is clear weather now for these drivers. As we see Horlov getting off the line, hoping to make up some positions. And making it down into turn 1. Already up to 5th, already up to 4th. Looking to go around the outside. Hopefully able to put on the gas on the exit. And we see these 4 cars here. This is going to be battle for the ages. As Horlov sending it down the inside, getting on the throttle, getting past David Vintilescu, looking to get past Choppers Bro, but I don't think he's going to have the speed to do it before our next braking zone. Looks like David has managed to keep it on the inside and has gotten back in front of Horlov as Horlov is still trying to get ahead of these two. David and Bygos are wheel to wheel. It does not get closer than this. As they make their way down towards this hard braking zone, MOHD has been given a penalty for a jump start. And it is 3 wide through the right-hand corner. Very close, but Horlov manages to keep the car where he needs it and to get out in front. David Vintilescu P2, Philip P3, and Bygos is only half a second back in P4. Philip in P4. Bygos only half a second back in P5. Looks like Azukar FV has gone to the pit lane. I'm not sure if he has retired from the race or what has happened there, but David Vintilescu hoping to keep this gap close to Horlov, hoping to find some of the pace that Horlov has shown us today. But currently it is not looking like he will be able to do so. Track appears to be a little bit damp still, appears to be drying rapidly. As we see these gaps pull out to about 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 5 seconds between most of our cars. Horlov is in first position at the end of our first lap. David Vintilescu about 0.8 of a second behind him. As we see, I believe Azukar FV coming out of the pit lane, nearly colliding with Horlov in the first corner, but David Vintilescu pulling around next to him, getting by and sticking with Horlov. Gap is down to about 0.5 now, so David may be able to get a move done. Skipping across the road here as the dry track is now giving them the grip that they did not have last race. David Vintilescu, gap is down to about half a second to first position, and it is opening out a little bit through the corners, but David seems to maybe have the better exit into some of our straights here, so we will see if he is able to get a move done and when. Currently we're going to keep an eye on this battle, and we are going to turn our eyes to Choppers Bro, who is about 0.8 of a second back from just Bygos, and we'll be looking to make up that position as well. David Vintilescu closing that gap under 0.8 to Horlov, 0.75 of a second, and still closing slowly. Choppersbro with a little bit of a late braking and losing out about half a second to just Bygos ahead. David Vintilescu has now fallen 4 or 5 seconds back from Horlev, so it's not looking like we're going to see that move anytime soon. As just Bygos goes off the track, Choppersbro now within 0.3 of a second. He's going to be looking to get something done through the final corner here. He's going to be looking for a better exit, and he is struggling with the rears on the entry, but he comes down the inside. He gets on the power, and he seems to be fairly equal in speed with just Bygos ahead of him. He's going to pull behind for a slipstream, and he's going to hope that he can get a slipstream because he will need it if he's going to get a move done into turn 1 here. Gap is very close. We're going to go to the onboard helmet camera, and we are going to watch this overtake as it happens. Choppersbro pulling alongside, getting just barely wheels ahead, braking that little bit later that he needed, and getting the move done on just Bygos. That is a beautiful overtake from Choppers there, as just Bygos now falls about 0.3 of a second back, which is not a gap that he can't make up. If he can funnel some pace here, and if he can find some slipstream from the car ahead, he will be able to get this position back, and we will see this battle continue. Currently, David Vintilescu seems to be quite a ways back from first position, about 6 seconds now, so I don't think that we'll see anything there. Oh, just Bygos loses the rears, nearly spins, manages to keep it on the track, but he's going to lose a few seconds to Choppersbro ahead, and that is going to leave him with his work cut out for him to catch up and to close that gap to Choppersbro for the podium finish here. Anyway, David Vintilescu about 6 seconds back from first place, so it's fairly likely that Horlev will run away with this one again, unless David can find some pace that he has not found yet. Just Bygos closing this gap up. It's about 1.6 seconds now. We should see this close up significantly before the start of the next lap. Already down to about 1.3 as Choppers spins off the track, catches the curb on the exit, it looks like. Just Bygos running a little bit wide, manages to get past him. Has Horlev spun? He's behind David Vintilescu now. What's happened there? I don't know. Horlev now about 0.2 of a second behind David Vintilescu, looking to move to the outside. Both of these cars are just spraying water at each other as they make our way down to the braking zone for turn 1. Horlev as late as absolutely possible on the brakes. David Vintilescu staying on the inside, putting the power down, and able to hold out in front of Horlev for now. Horlev has the inside though. He's going to want to be last on the brakes. They're too wide. And David is able to put on the power a little bit more on the exit, and he's able to pull out this gap to about 0.3 of a second. Horlev, though, keeping his foot pinned through these corners, rattling over the curbs, but slowing it down like he needs to, and hoping that he's going to be able to stay behind David here. He does not want David to get away from him because he's going to need the slipstream if he wants to get a move done. Currently, the gap is about half a second. Horlev absolutely has the pace to close up that gap as he moves for the switchback. Oh, over that sausage curve on the inside. And a little bit better speed, but I don't think it's going to be enough for him to get past David here. As he moves towards the outside, hoping to just get the better exit, hoping to get the inside for our final corner. As David runs over the curbs, Horlev moves towards the inside, moves for the better exit, gets the better exit, and it is going to be very close. David is going to have the outside into turn 1 here. As we see, MOHD has been given a 20-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. David and Horlev are wheel to wheel on the very inside of the track. It is the wall, and it is Horlev, and it is David. As Horlev sets the fastest lap of our race here, 1:43.6, is later on the brakes, but David is gonna let the brakes out. Horlev stays on the inside, and David stays on the outside, and they are still side by side through these corners. David with a little bit better exit from turn 1, going to be looking for a little bit better exit from this corner here. Is he going to be able to get that? No, it appears he is not, as Horlev pulls a few car lengths ahead now. We see some lap traffic moving out of the way. Very nearly contact, and David Vintilescu has hit the curb and he is spun, so Horlev is going to pull out this gap now. We see lap traffic still potentially going to be in the way. David Vintilescu just not getting away like he needs to here, and he has dropped down to 3rd position, now 12 seconds behind the lead of the race, but only about a second behind 2nd place, so he should be able to make up that gap before too long here. We don't really see any other close gaps here. Looks like Horlov, as we know, is the fastest man on track, but David is right there with him, only 36 thousandths of a second behind, and he will catch Just Bygos, and he will look to get a move done on Just Bygos down the inside, and looks like that is going to be a clean overtake. Bygos very close, but David now has the inside into the final corner. Bygos may have an opportunity for a run down into turn 1 if he keeps the throttle pinned on exit here, which he does, and that gap is closing. So we could see Bygos move for the inside down into turn 1 here. Time will tell. Gap is down to about half a second between them now. It looks like Philip has disconnected from the race. Hopefully... Okay. Yeah, Philip disconnected because his penalty didn't register. So that's very unfortunate for him. As we see, Just Bygos has not gotten back next to David Vintilescu. Gap is down to about a second now. And it looks like David is going to be able to run away from Bygos here. The question is he going to have the pace to catch Horlov? I don't know. The last lap, of course, is not representative because we had the spin there. But we will see if he's able to put in some faster laps and to close up that gap to the lead. He's got 20 minutes here. A lot can happen in 20 minutes, so time will tell if we're going to see that move get done before the end of the race. Azukar FV actually putting in a very strong lap from the back of the field. That's a 1:45.9, which is about a second and a half, I believe, off of our fastest lap of the day. We're going to jump on board with David Vintilescu, struggling with some lap traffic at the moment. Lap traffic has spun out of the way. David has clean air for absolutely ages now, as it seems like Horlov may have had an incident, may have spun, may have caught the curbs. What happened, I'm not exactly sure, but this gap between David Vintilescu and Horlov is down to only 2.5 seconds now. David will be looking for the pace to try and catch Horlov. Will he find it? I don't know. We will have to wait and see. As Just Bygos is also still keeping it close to the back of David, only about 1.8 seconds between them. David about 2.6 behind the lead of this race. It is a big gap, but it is not a gap that David will not be able to make up. David has put in a 1:44.0, a very quick lap from him. Will it be quick enough to catch Horlov? We will see. Just Bygos seems to be falling back a little bit as we expected, as Azukar FV is only about 0.4 of a second back behind MOHD here, locks up and runs wide and spins exiting turn 1, as does the car he's following. There may be a battle to be had here if both of these guys can keep it on track for the rest of the race. Currently the gap is about 3 seconds, but we've seen Azukar, he has closed up this gap once already. He will do it again, as David Vintilescu, still about 3 seconds behind Horlov, may not have the pace to catch unless Horlov makes another mistake. We see some rain starting up here. This is going to shake up the race if it continues raining. These cars may come into the pits for wet tires. We see Azukar FV already back to about 0.7 of a second behind MOHD. In their last lap, we see Azukar was nearly 10 seconds faster than MOHD. And if he can keep this clean, we are going to see an overtake before too long here. Azukar locking up a little bit, MOHD losing the rears, Azukar trying to get it down the inside, but MOHD leaving no room for him. Azukar with a little bit of a better exit, MOHD just staying in front of him. As MOHD runs wide, Azukar is going to get on the throttle. MOHD is going to fall back to 7th position as he struggles to get back on the track here. Horlov now puts in the fastest lap of our race. That's a 1:42.195. David is not able to match that, with his last lap being a 1:44.6. So it's looking like Horlov is going to run away with it again here. MOHD, we see struggling to keep it on the track, nearly causing a collision with some traffic that appears to be a lap ahead there. That is LB906 we just saw. almost contact MOHD. Luckily, no incident there, as MOHD comes into the pits now. For what? I'm not sure. Could be for tires, could be for fuel. Bygos now about 4 seconds behind David Vintilescu. And this gap, most likely, we will not see close up. We can see David Vintilescu, what is this? About a second, I don't know, over a second faster. Well over a second faster, like 1.7 quicker in the last lap. So it is unlikely that we will see this gap close, but as we know, anything can happen. David's still only about 5.6 behind Horolov, so there is potential if Horolov does have a spin or some other incident here, there is potential for David Vintilescu to get a move done. It is honestly quite close between the top three here. You can see on the map they are 1, 2, and 3 right next to each other. MOHD has been disqualified for not taking his stop and go penalty, so that is very unfortunate for him. He will not finish this race, as we see Azukar FV making their way through the last set of corners now. They are going to move up to 6th position with MOHD out, as Just Bygos still losing time to David Vintilescu, about 6.1 seconds back, and a 30-second gap behind him. David Vintilescu puts in a personal best lap time of a 1:43.573, but still about a second slower than Horolov in first, so it's looking like David is not going to be able to catch him before the end of the race here. Although the gap is down to about a second and a half, Horolov may have had some incident here, and David is looking in front of him, and he is seeing Horolov, and he has to be thinking he wants to go catch this guy. So David may be trying harder than ever here to put in some pace and to close up this gap to Horolov for the lead of the race. Currently, he is falling back. It's gone from 1.5 to 1.8 in the last few corners, so likely we will not see this gap close unless Horolov makes another mistake, which he has done. We have seen it happen. So there is potential for David Vintilescu to take the lead of the race here if there's a mistake from Horolov in front. Just Bygos drops to about 7 seconds behind second position. Most likely we will not see that gap close again unless we see an incident from David Vintilescu here. As they come through the final corners, it is still close, still about a second and a half between the number 1 and the number 2 car out on track here. 1.3, 1.4 seconds. Horolov riding the curbs on the exit. Gap falls to about 1.1 seconds. David Vintilescu with a much better exit speed, but he is going to be very far back to try anything down into turn 1 here. Time will tell if we see him make a move, but right now it is looking unlikely. As these two cars come down towards the first corner, we see David Vintilescu now within a 1 second margin of Horolov, and hoping to close it up. It is very close. David Vintilescu now 0.9 seconds away, 0.95. He is catching, and he is catching slowly, but if he can keep this pace consistently, we will see a battle here sometime in the coming laps. About 13 minutes left in our reverse grid race here. We can see a pretty similar finishing order as our last race, although we have had 2 drivers disqualified from penalties, from failing to serve penalties, as David Vintilescu now falls about 3/10 further back. It's 1.2 seconds between them now. And David, he is keeping it clean out here, down to about 1.1 as Choppers puts in a personal best lap time. But David is just unable to get this gap under a second now, it seems. Horolov has realized he needs to find some more pace, and he has gone and done that. And it seems like he is going to keep it in front of David Vintilescu. David struggling a little bit on the curbs on the exits. Horolov seems to have the advantage here in terms of pace. Looks like the rain has gone away, so we won't see anything like that, I don't believe. David Vintilescu 1.21 seconds back, closing just the smallest amount, but nowhere near enough to get a move done. As we come down towards the first corner now, David puts in a personal best lap time, a 1:42 0.785, which is only 0.2 of a second slower than Horolov's last lap. So if David can find just a little bit more pace, we will see him catching Horolov within the next lap or two here. Gap is currently down to a little over a second, 1.1 seconds. But not closing up as fast as David would like to see. As we have just 6 racers currently. Oh, David locks up, nearly loses the rear, but manages to hold it. That is going to hurt him catching Horolov, though, as the gap falls down to about 1.7 seconds between the two of them. Horolov has been consistent, but we have seen a couple of mistakes from him. Personal best lap time for LB, that's a 1:45.8. Congratulations to them. As David's struggling over the curbs as we come towards the final set of corners here. David again just not having the grip to get these exits, running a little bit wide, and then he hits the curb and he's unable to put the power down as the car is bouncing around. So gap currently about 1.5 seconds, 1.4 maybe, as we come into the start-finish straight here. David Vintilescu putting the power on, catching very slowly. It's about 1.45 seconds now, potentially closing, but again, not fast enough to be able to get a move done on Horolov here. We can see that Horolov is potentially a little bit slower in our final sector and a little bit slower in our first sector, but he is much quicker in the second sector, and that is where he's finding his time. It looks like Horolov locks up a little bit through the first corner. It's not cost him too much. Gap down to about 1.3 seconds now. David's still giving it his all out here, trying to catch first position. As he gets even closer now, gap is down to about 0.87 of a second. 0.9 seconds now. David sending it through these corners, just trying to get as much speed as he can as Horolov locks up, runs wide. Gap is very close now. They're down to about 0.3 seconds between them. And David will be able to catch a slipstream off the back of Horolov here as we head down towards the final sector. But will he be able to get a move done? I don't know. He does. He sends it towards the inside. He loses the rear, and he is not able to keep it ahead. He is able to keep it close, though. Gap is only about 0.6 of a second between them. And David will probably have the pace to close that up. We've seen him consistently quicker than Horolov throughout this lap, and we will hopefully continue to see that as we go on. As we see our rear-facing camera now, we can see David looking for any more pace he can find out of this car. Horolov locks up, runs wide. It's the same corner we've seen it before, but David is not quite able to get enough speed on the exit here to close up this gap to Horolov, unfortunately for him. It is very close between the two of them, about 9/10 of a second now. David is closing slightly, but is it going to be closing fast enough? We have about 5.5 minutes left in our race here, and David has fallen back to about 1.2 second gap to Horolov ahead. As we see our cars coming through the final corner, coming onto the start-finish straight, David again has had a consistently better exit than Horolov onto this straight here. Will we see it this time? Looking like no, we will not, as the gap stays fairly even between them. David Vintilescu just keeping his car a second to a second and a quarter as he runs wide. David Vintilescu is going to have an opportunity. We're going to jump back on board with him. We're going to look for our forward-facing camera here, and we are going to see that this gap has come down to about 0.3 of a second. This will give David an opportunity to get a move done. David will want to catch a slipstream from Horolov, and he will want to send it down the inside, likely of this turn up here in the top right of the track. However, it's looking like currently David may not be able to hold the gap as he loses on the exit, falls down to about 0.6 of a second behind. That may not be enough for him to get something done. 4.5 minutes left in this race. We are looking for a move from David Vintilescu, and David is just not able to find any more pace in this car. Horolov running over the curbs. That is going to give David an opportunity to put some more power down as we come into our final corner complex here. David running a tiny bit wide, Horolov able to keep ahead. But as we come into the final corner, we could see anything happen. David has been consistently quicker on the front straight as he moves towards the inside. Very close between the two of them, but that will compromise David's exit a little bit. We see the gap open up to about 0.3 of a second. Are these cars going into the pit lane? I'm not sure. Currently it looks like they will be. They will not. They stick to the right-hand side of the track. 0.2 between them. David is catching a slipstream, and he is gaining quickly. He moves to the outside of the corner. Will he be able to be later on the brakes? Time will tell. Horolov is behind, but Horolov is later. He stays on the inside. David Vintilescu looking for the switchback, unable to find the speed he needs on the exit. Horolov keeping it ahead for now, but the gap is still very tight. 0.2 of a second between these two cars now. As we come through the first sector, David Vintilescu just has to keep it behind Horolov here. He needs the slipstream if he wants any chance at a move. We see a couple personal best lap times. Congratulations to them. And we see David Vintilescu now falling back again to about 0.6 of a second. Now this is where we were last time, and we very nearly saw the move get done. So I would not rule anything out on this lap. As we see David Vintilescu 5/6 back, we see some lapped traffic moving out of the way. And David now about 0.3, with tiny bit better exit into these corners, but falling back a little bit, about 0.5 between them. David Vintilescu needs to focus on his exits into the front straight if he wants a chance at getting ahead of Horolov. About 0.5 between them. David is going to look towards the inside. He's not going to see an opportunity, and he is going to put his foot on the floor as we come into the final straight here. Gap is about 0.6 of a second, and it's looking like David will not gain on Horolov this lap. We will have... we will see... potentially 2 more laps. It's going to be very close. If we see any incidents whatsoever, then we will have only 1 more lap in this race. We may have 2. Time will tell. David Vintilescu keeping it tight through turn 1. Still about 0.6 between first and second place cars, but David wanting to close that gap. 0.5 of a second now. It is So close between the two of these guys. David falling back a little bit, about 7 tenths now, 6 tenths. As we come towards this little straight here, David will need to get a fantastic exit speed as he falls back a lot more now, 1.5 seconds. We see Horlev ahead struggling with the rears. That may give David an opportunity. David, however, seems to not be putting the throttle down all the way. Potentially he is fuel saving there. This could be absolutely devastating for his race. What's going on? I'm not sure. David appears to be driving very, very slowly. This has taken him out of contention for the win of this race. As he pulls over now to the side of the track, very, very light on the throttle. We see Bygos 32 seconds behind. David likely trying to stretch his last remaining fuel out, but this may give Bygos an opportunity if Horlev is able to make it to the line in time for another lap. David Vintilescu still just driving extremely slowly. He put in an incredible effort to catch Horlev. We have seen Horlev faster than everyone else on track, and David was very close and kept it very close for a long time. Horlev crosses the line, and we're going to have one more lap of this race. David Vintilescu knows he needs a pit stop, likely now. As he makes his way towards the pit lane, we see LB906 has been given a 5-second time penalty for cutting the track. It is a 75-second gap behind, so he will not be worried about that. As we see David come into the pit lane, this is absolutely devastating, as Just Bygos is now going to come out ahead. Looks like an absolutely massive pit stop time loss for David Vintilescu. He is going to drop down to 3rd, hopefully not going to drop down to 4th, as he is unable to make it to his pit box here. Or maybe not, maybe that was just a display issue. Just Bygos now 35 seconds ahead of David Vintilescu. David Vintilescu has pushed as hard as he could, and it has cost him 2nd position in this race, as he's had to take a late pit stop for one more lap of fuel just for the end. And it is promoted Just Bygos from a 3rd position to a 2nd position with about a 20-second gap between them. So I don't see anything happening on this lap. Just Bygos, though, potentially has gone off the track. Still about 18 seconds between the 2nd place and 3rd place cars, so unlikely we'll see anything happen here. Horlev now coming down the start-finish straight. This has been, again, a remarkable race for him. He has managed to hold out his position against the incredibly aggressive driving, well, not aggressive driving, the incredibly impressive driving of David Vintilescu, and he has come out ahead, and it is 1st position for Horlev. It is going to be 2nd position for Bygos here as he comes through the final few corners. Bygos now coming through the final corner onto the start-finish straight. And it is looking like a guaranteed. It will be 2nd position for them. There is a bit of a glitch with the leaderboard here. Azukar FB is not in 2nd place. However, Just Bygos now coming towards the line, taking that 2nd position. David Vintilescu on the start-finish straight. He has the fuel to keep his throttle down this time. LB906, another 5-second penalty. Still not going to matter for him, as David Vintilescu now crosses the line, taking 3rd position home. Very unfortunate for him with the fuel situation. Could have been a 2nd place if he had packed just a few more liters from the start of this race. But unfortunately for him, it wasn't. As we see, LB906 in 4th, Zukar FV in 5th, and Choppers Bro coming down the final straight to take 6th position in this race. Sorry, that is 4th position for Choppers Bro. Congratulations to them. That's again the leaderboard, just not liking timed races, but this is our finishing order from the reverse grid race. We do have, I believe, another session after this. I will have to confirm that. I'm not sure. Anyway, a big congratulations to Horlov. He has shown some incredible pace today. I've just been told there is not another session, so thank you for watching. That has been the ISRL Formula 2 Season 2 Round 2 Championship at Fuji. Thank you for watching. I have one more ad to play.